Welcome to the PoliticsJOE Election Party. I'm joined now by Pierre Novelli, comedian, Christian Calgi of Guido, and he's been referring to himself this evening as the token Tory at the party, and Ellen Coyne, Joe.ie's head of politics. Thanks for joining us, guys. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Let's have a chat about what's been happening so far in the campaign and how we think things might go. Calgi, I'll come to you first as the token Tory.
It's the token Tory.
Yeah, and I wonder, first of all, are you sort of nailed on for a Tory majority, and what sort of extent do you think we could see the Tories winning by this evening?
Well, I'm the token Tory, but I'm not filled with Boris's optimism. He stood on the steps of Downing Street and said he's going to prove the doomsters and gloomsters wrong, and I am one of those doomsters and gloomsters. But saying that, I have not left London or Twitter, right? So my sample base is not exactly representative. I just feel that the Tories hit a roof of 42-43% in 2017. It hasn't really changed, and the key thing for the Tories was to see a strong Lib Dem performance to split the Labour vote. And the Lib Dems have, collapsed in on themselves like a trifle in a cupboard, and we are, on the verge of seeing Jo Swinson lose her seat this evening. So, fingers crossed. So the Tories, I just don't feel they've had enough. I think it's been a fairly lacklustre campaign. They've tried invoking that vote leave thing, but partisan prejudices will always get in the way in those target seats, and I think Labour have managed to claw back quite a sizable chunk. As we saw in those YouGov polls, it went from 60-something to 20-something in terms of predicted seats. So I think tonight we're heading for 5, 10, 15. But the key difference is, of course, that every single one of those candidates, even if it's a majority of one, will support Boris's deal. So if it is a majority of one, despite that seeming incredibly, shaky and uncertain in traditional senses, does give a level of certainty that we will be leaving the EU on January the 31st.
Pierre, when Boris Johnson was elected as the Tory leader, much was made of his ability to be this sort of golden campaigner. He was dynamic, he was charismatic, and he was going to take the Tories to a thumping majority. Where has that Boris Johnson been during the course of this campaign?
Well, that's been an interesting thing, because in the world of comedy, there's a lot of self-flagellation about putting Boris Johnson on Have I Got News For You all the time and stuff, and how much did we help this guy out by making him look funny, or is he funny, or how good is this guy when it comes to riffing and being off the cuff. And I was really expecting, wow, after years of attention-seeking panel show appearances, he's going to have this honed armory, and he's been dog shit, fumbling, weird, sweaty. He's like bad Nixon, he's just odd analogies coming out that aren't even classical, not even on brand is the point. Yeah, if you come out and you go, well, Pythagoras, fine, okay, it's weird, but it's on brand, but it's fine. But he's just been genuinely odd and strange, and that's why I've had a lot of discussions with friends where they've gone, oh, it's really bad for him not to do interviews with Andrew Neil or anyone else, and I've been one of the few people going, oh, he'd better fucking stay away. Have you seen the form he's on?
Yeah.
It's he's on a mixture of Valium and caffeine. He can't pick a speed, and his hair's damp and too dry at the same time. Everything about him has been creepy and strange.
Yeah.
Well, I was really expecting a creepily well done thing, a kind of Terminator vibe. You can't stop this guy making bon mot.
Yeah.
A constant dinner party. But it's not. It's been a real disaster.
That sounds horrendous. Ellen, Pierre touched on Johnson avoiding the Neil interview there, and I wonder whether you think the BBC and sort of our media has been central to this campaign, really, hasn't it? And they've received a lot of criticism, if I'll be honest about it, often from weird corners anyway. But what are the standout moments for you, and how do you think the BBC has done in this election?
Well, I suppose the problem that you have in the UK now is criticism from the weird corners is now your mainstream politics. And I feel kind of guilty even being here, because I've been watching this play out from the safer side of the Irish scene. So for me, I'm just kind of here for the drama. Like either we get like a socialist miracle on 34th Street where a guy in red with a white beard has like a surprise win at the end, or we have like more Tory chaos bringing us closer than some of us could have ever dreamed of a united Ireland in my political lifetime. So, I mean, I think we've kind of given up a long time ago in Ireland of having a UK electoral result that's either predictable or sensible. I think a lot of us were kind of hoping that Labour might be able to replicate some of the youth-led movements that we had in Ireland on abortion rights or marriage equality. But I mean, I literally don't have a fucking clue what you're at over here, so I wouldn't even dare predict it.
I wonder, I know a lot is made with joking, etc., about sort of how terrifying the prospect of a Boris Johnson government could be, but is there actually, a palpable sense of fear in Ireland about...
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, the Taoiseach would never admit it because Leo Varadkar hates socialism, like, absolutely hates it, so he would never say anything that supports Jeremy Corbyn. But it's been very obvious in Ireland for the past couple of years that this Conservative government has been actively walking away from the Good Friday Agreement, and I think the most terrifying thing of all is that we're not even sure if that's from a place of malice or if it's because of a genuine lack of understanding about Northern Ireland, or maybe not even giving a shit. Like, I think it's interesting that of all the talk over here about Jeremy Corbyn being a dangerous man, given how powerful patriotism and nationalism was in the Brexit referendum, how nobody's been making a point about the threat that Boris Johnson is to the Union. Like, you might lose Scotland and Northern Ireland, and it's going to be a very lonely life for Wales if that happens.
Gally, what have been the standout moments of the campaign for you?
Standout moments. I think the instantaneous collapse of the Lib Dems and Brexit Party was a beautiful sight to behold. Look, I'm a huge fan of our voting system. Two-party politics, turns me on in quite an unhealthy way, and to see the Lib Dems and the Brexit Party, just play such a blinder so quickly. Nigel Farage, it's quite a pitiful sight, actually. Really quite embarrassing in terms. I mean, this guy obviously has never won a seat in Parliament, but has had an indescribably great effect on British politics and our country, and has gone overseas, is friends with the president. So to come over here and get a crowd of 30 people in Hartlepool, it's I want to sort of launch a charity Christmas appeal for the guy. Jo Swinson has obviously also been hilarious. And then it's the small things, because you get towards an election, the pressure builds and builds, people start losing their fucking minds, and because they've got no sleep. So then we get to the point where we spend, 3 days talking about whether Jeremy Corbyn watches the Queen's speech or not. It's a broadcast only 10% of the British public watch, but the broadcasters were relentless, and it was just succession after succession of shadow cabinet ministers walking into the most obvious bear pit, having not prepared and having crossed wires, and I just sat back and sort of really enjoyed it for a bit before the next Boris cock-up when he walked into a fridge, and that was a great moment.
Yeah, it was.
Again, not smooth.
Yeah,
where did this smooth guy go?
Well, and his mind are telling the GMB reporter to fuck off.
Yeah,
as well.
It's actually it's the Tory climate change policy, actually. We'll get into fridges in the north.
Yeah. What have been the key issues for you? Because I know this was described as the Brexit election at the outset, and obviously Boris Johnson has done his utmost to make it about that. Do you think he's succeeded? What have been the key issues for you?
I think he's succeeded. My completely unqualified grasping prediction is that he will have succeeded in a lot of the seats in what they call the Red Wall. So Great Grimsby, Wrexham, Hartlepool, places like that. Because as a stand-up, I go around the country a lot, and my job is essentially, when you're a stand-up and you do a comedy set, you're essentially just doing a comedy, it's like a survey. Is this funny? Is this funny? What about this? And if you're wrong enough times in a row, they boo until you leave. And the pro-Brexit feeling in those places, especially among the demographics that I have encountered, is unbelievably strong. Much stronger than I've seen anyone reckon with, I think. So I reckon there's going to be a lot of upsets there. But for me, it's been a very Brexity election, and I'm biased because I'm from South Africa originally. I'm a British citizen, in case anyone from the Home Office is watching. just to get that out of the way.
Teresa's over here right now.
Yeah, we're in a hostile environment. Cut his mic. I'm a British citizen, and I have been for a while, but I'm from South Africa, and if you're a white South African, or at least if you're a white South African like me, it's very emotionally important to me to be able to look in the mirror and say to myself, I have never voted for a party that I believe could be guilty of racism, or is being investigated for racism, or is avoiding an investigation into racism. And that rules out Labour and the Tories for me, because they have both behaved abysmally with regard to minorities in this country. And I, as an immigrant, I have been shocked to my core. You have to understand that as foreigners, originally, we have this feeling that the UK is this infinitely sensible sort of grandpa. And they'll go, well, it's all very silly, and it'll all come right in the end. And to watch a bunch of people who we believe that of, to collectively lose their fucking minds about Jews and Muslims collectively, is absolutely terrifying. And it makes you paranoid to the point where you start going, well, what do the Lib Dems pick? Sikhs? I mean, does every party have one religious minority they're going to fuck over? It's been...
The Brexit Party are famously anti-Catholic, actually.
Or Amish or something.
Yeah.
Just Amish.
Just the Amish.
It has been absolutely chilling to watch the two main parties slide into excusing bigotry for their own ideological purposes. And as a white South African, I do not feel morally comfortable with voting for any party that has got even a lick of racism about it, given our own nation's history as well. And I mean, that might be a particularly white South African sensitivity, but it's one that I have, and that is why I voted the way I did.
Calgi, you were espousing the values of our two-party system a minute ago. But if we had more proportional representation and we didn't have first past the post, would you accept that voters in the UK would they'd be able to vote for an anti-racist party, a party that they view that has no racism in it, or at least is combating racism, but they feel that they can't because it's a wasted vote, a million votes for the Greens or whatever, and, so few seats.
Yeah.
No, I think, look, it's all about weighing things up. So, yeah, of course, you get more choice under a proportional system.
It would neutralise the SNP, Calgi. That's got to turn you on.
They're still heading for 50%. I mean, it's just, they achieved a majority in the Scottish Parliament under a proportional system.
2.5% of the population and 35 MPs versus...
Oh, if we're doing it like an Israeli election, where it's just one big constituency.
The Don system,
the Don system. I think I like talking about the Israeli system.
Lib Dems 7.5 and 11 MPs?
Well, that's what they're on.
Unbelievable.
It's amazing, isn't it?
They just start picking them from other parties, don't they?
Well,
they do. Well, that's the key thing we want to remember tonight is the Lib Dems started on 20. So they are going to lose seats. I'm not having this, we won so many last time. They're starting on 20. I like talking about the Israeli system because they are the only country, I think, with sort of a more chaotic democracy than ours. They've had 3 elections in a year, right, I think, or something like that.
I mean, cross your fingers, that might be something that we're heading towards, you never know. Do you think Jeremy Corbyn lasts as Labour leader? I open this up to everyone. Do you think Jeremy Corbyn lasts as Labour leader if Labour get anything less than a majority? You do? Yeah.
I think you can see that regardless of what happens, people in Labour are already convincing themselves that even if they lose, they've started a movement. They have galvanised young people who know how to canvass and who know how to knock on doors. And we learned in Ireland that that's actually quite a precious resource. And with our referendum on abortion, those people went straight into left-wing parties, never had an actual impact, because in Ireland you just have 2 main parties who are super similar and take turns every few years. But I think he'll remain, and he will justify it to himself, and the party will justify it to himself. I'd be surprised if he resigned tomorrow, but what do I know?
There was a very interesting piece, I think, in the Sunday Times, which is that Corbyn will have to go, McDonnell will step in as a caretaker, and they'll have the full leadership election at the next conference.
But I mean... He hasn't said he'll resign if they don't win, but John McDonnell has, which, in his sinister way.
You will resign.
You will resign. So maybe McDonnell's wishes will come true, but I don't know how as much as he is the founder of the movement, I've seen on Twitter a lot of people replying to stuff to do with the anti-Semitism scandal saying Corbynism has outlived Corbyn.
Yeah.
So now it's, for a lot of people it seems to have become almost an academic term.
It is important to note now that Corbyn's allies control the whole party.
Yep.
It's not just the leader now, it's the NEC, it's from top to bottom, it is properly left-wing movement. So I think there is now that point that if Corbyn loses, the left-wing membership can be safe in the knowledge that even if they replace him, it's not going to be a Blairite takeover.
Yeah,
you know?
We've seen that in his campaign, almost a focus on the Parliamentary Labour Party and those seats where avowed Corbynites are standing and the support they've received versus the centre. The exit poll is due soon. We'll probably have be back here giving a take on it then. So let's leave it there, guys. But thank you so much for chatting to me now. I appreciate it. We'll get back to our beers. Thank you.